Now, around here, there is some good that happens once the Oscar nominations are announced. So there's only 3 theaters in my town, and they don't like to take chances with movies that they don't know will make money. Of course, it makes sense. But we don't have any art house theaters or anything that does a lot of indie stuff. So sometimes movies that get critically acclaimed just pass by us. But if that movie is nominated for Best Picture for the Oscars, then suddenly it comes to our theater, no matter if it's actually on DVD at the moment. Yeah, movies that are nominated for Oscars suddenly come back to our theaters. It's around this time where I can actually see the ones that we missed out. So out of the 8 nominated movies for Best Picture, I got to see the 3 that didn't come out the week they were supposed to. Starting with Room. So Room is about a young woman living with her 5-year-old son in a single room. Well, it turns out it's not actually a room. No, she's been kidnapped and she's living in a shed for several years. And this young boy, who's the offspring of the kidnapper and the kidnapped, has only ever known this room. He calls it room, and to him it is the entire world because he knows nothing else of the outside world, doesn't even know that the outside world exists. But after so many years of being in the shed, the mother hatches a plan. It's a dangerous plan, all resting on the shoulders of this one young kid. Now, just from that description, what kind of movie do you think this would be? Do you think this is a dark film? Do you think this is maybe a thriller? Because that plot seems like that would be the case, that it would be this dark thriller, it would be depressing, this girl's locked up in a shed. But surprisingly, that's really not the tone of this movie, and I was really impressed by it. All through the eyes of this young kid who only knows this room as the world that he lives in. So I feel the tone of the film is mostly this curious, this wondrous, this almost really hopeful film. And so for me, it never really got dark and depressing. It never felt like something that was gritty and just disturbing. It was one that was very hopeful, very wondrous, very childlike. And I think it has to deal with the fact that it's through the eyes of this young boy. I also feel that the world that this movie is set in is set up very nicely. You gradually learn more about the situation that they're in through the kid as he's being explained certain things that he doesn't quite know or doesn't quite understand. And there are several moments where when I'm watching it, I'm like, well, why doesn't she try to escape this way or that way? And the movie manages to explain that about 10 minutes later after I have such questions. Like one of the questions I had is why doesn't she just try to escape by bashing him in the head and then running out the door? Well, about 15 minutes later, it shows that the door actually has a key code, and I think, oh, well, that kind of explains things, why she doesn't just attack the captor and then run out. Because she doesn't know the code, and the movie explains it perfectly. That's just one example of some of the things where I had questions. I'm like, why doesn't she do this? And then suddenly, 10 minutes later, it's explained why. And not in a way where she tells the audience or tells the character, which is basically explaining to the audience. It's done in nice, subtle ways and visual ways where it's like, oh, that makes sense now. I understand. Also, because it's seen through the eyes of the kid, a lot of the drama revolving around the other characters is more subtly told rather than actually going into depth. Because our main character is this little kid and we're seeing the things just as he sees them. But there's enough subtle things and visual things that we realize, okay, this is kind of the things that these other characters are going through. It doesn't feel completely fleshed out, but it feels genuine and it feels like there's enough there for us to understand what these other characters are going through as well. And the implications of the stories and the drama revolving around this kid. It definitely feels like a smart and very subtly told film. Now, because this is a very character-driven drama that happens to be nominated for Best Picture in the Oscars, of course, the best thing about this film is the acting, or at least most of the actors. Now when I say most, that doesn't necessarily mean that I thought anyone was bad. I just think there is a very clear best actress in this film, and that's Brie Larson. After seeing her role in this, I understand just why she's been nominated for Best Actress. She's absolutely phenomenal in this film. She definitely feels like a mother that's protective of her child. But even though she's very protective of her child and clearly loving of him, she's also not quite ready for motherhood. She definitely feels like a person that's been thrown into the mess and then has to take care of this kid that's hers, all while not getting the proper education of how to treat their son. At least some of the subtle things about the film I saw that brought into her character. And I'm not just talking about some of the arguments she has with him and how some of the time she's annoyed with some of the things that he does. I'm not talking about that stuff because that's natural of parents and children to have. But there's definitely something underneath the surface where she's just not quite ready. And it makes sense that she was forced into having this kid pretty much because she's been kidnapped and, well, things happen. I thought all the supporting actors were really great as well. Sean Bridgers is the kidnapper. His name's Old Nick, or he's referred to as Old Nick. He was good and creepy. Joan Allen and William H. Macy play the parents of Brie Larson's character, and I thought they were both great, even though William H. Macy is pretty much in just 2 scenes. Joan Allen did a phenomenal job as well. The person who plays Leo, who was really good as well, was Tom McCamus. I hope I'm pronouncing that name right. M-C-C-A-M-U-S. The last name. Of course. I know how to pronounce Tom. But yeah, I thought this was a wonderfully acted film. And a lot of people are raving about the child actor as well. The boy's name is Jack, and the actor's name is Jacob Tremblay. Now, I thought he did a good job. Now, I didn't find him a phenomenal actor. I didn't feel like he was something like other people are saying, oh, he was robbed of an Oscar nomination, and I don't really see it that way. But maybe that's because there was a lot of really great child actors last year, and I'm just more impressed with all of them, more so than Jacob Tremblay. Now, granted, I thought he was a really great character, and I thought he did that character really well. But sometimes he almost felt like the kid from The Babadook with the sudden yelling, and sometimes he just didn't look like a 5-year-old to me, which I don't think he is a 5-year-old, I don't think. I didn't look up his age, but he definitely seems a little older to be a 5-year-old to me. But at the same time, I did feel that he felt like a genuine kid in a movie. It felt like a kid that felt real, felt natural, and so I do think he did a really great job. I just don't think he was the best child actor of last year. I think that would go to Abraham Matah from Beasts of No Nation. He was amazing. In a way, this movie feels like 2 movies rolled up into one, because on the first half of the film is them dealing with the shed and dealing with how to get out and dealing with this kidnapper. And as that part of the film progresses, it starts getting a little darker as the kid realizes just the situation they're in. But then the second half of the movie is dealing with the outside world and adapting, and just how easy it is for one character while another character is harder for them to adapt. And that makes total sense. In many other movies, this wouldn't work because it feels like a resolution that is just too stretched out. For Room, it feels like a really great effort and something that I really appreciate. And I will admit, there is one moment towards the very middle of the film where I did tear up, and it was a joyful tear up. It wasn't a tear up where it's like, oh my god, this is so sad. It was one where it's like, yes, yes. It was one of those sort of things. This definitely feels like a movie that is very true to its characters and understands the psychological experiences that they've gone through, and they actually act accordingly to some of the things that they deal with. And there are little subtle things that if you pay attention to and you pick up on, all their actions make complete sense. I think this is a really excellent film, but there are a few things that sort of bothered me. For one, for the most part, I did really enjoy the narration of the kid throughout the movie, but sometimes it felt a little too cute. Like, there was some times where it felt like it was trying to be something big and mind-opening, but it just felt like some cute things that a kid would say. And it didn't seem as impactful as sometimes they might have tried to go for. Also, even though a lot of its shots and the set design and everything feels very artistic, feels really nice to look at, there are a few moments during some of these shots where it sort of made me really uncomfortable because it was a kid in his underwear for some of these shots, and it was really weird. And I understand that they have little clothing and it makes total sense for the world they're in because old Nick doesn't give them a lot of stuff. But at the same time, did some of these shots really have to have him in his underwear like front and center, like the underwear part like either very close to the center of the frame or in the exact center of the frame? I don't think it needed to be that. It felt a little dirty to me that some of these shots were him in his underwear and they were just like front and center. Is that maybe it's just me? I don't know. It just felt really weird and uncomfortable. Now, if this turns you off in the movie, let me just tell you that that sort of thing only happens about 3 times throughout the film, and the film's almost 2 hours long. It's about an hour and 50 or an hour and 40 something minutes, so it's almost 2 hours, and it's only 3 small shots that this happens. But they're very prominent shots because they're artistic shots, you know. Really, that's the only nitpicky thing I can say about the film, but it did make me uncomfortable. So, and I don't think the intention was to make you uncomfortable. I mean, I can understand a movie doing it for that intention, but I don't think that was the intention of the film. So it's not quite 5 stars for me. I'm sure there'll be people watching this review that are being like, what? You're not giving it 5 stars? Automatic dislike. I think that happened with Beasts of No Nation for me. I have 1 dislike because I didn't give it 5 stars, I feel. But I have to be honest, there was some nitpicky things I had with it, and I can't give something I give some nitpicks to that I disliked a 5 stars. I just can't do that. So for me, The Room is very close to 5 stars. It's probably more of 4.75, but I don't do quarters for last year. So I'm going to have to give Room 4.5 stars. So have you seen Room? What did you think about it? Go ahead and comment. Is it one of the best movies of the year for you? It's definitely in my top 20, that's for sure. But as always, this is Bruce Gifford, and this was Just My Opinion.